93% of our daily behaviors are controlled by our subconscious mind, according to research in cognitive psychology. This means most of your decisions, reactions, and limitations are influenced by parts of yourself you aren't fully aware of. When you continue to ignore these hidden aspects, they manifest as unexplained anxiety, self-sabotage, or projection onto others. Last month, I found myself repeatedly procrastinating on an important project despite knowing the deadline. My shadow at work. In this video, you will learn 3 practical techniques to recognize when your shadow is running the show and the exact steps to transform these unconscious patterns into conscious choices that align with who you truly want to be. The life of limitation, your current reality. What if the reason you feel stuck isn't because of external circumstances, but because of a part of yourself you've never met? That persistent feeling that something's missing in your life, despite checking all the boxes of what should make you happy, might be pointing to something deeper than just needing a better job or a different relationship. You wake up each morning with that familiar weight in your chest. Despite trying productivity systems, affirmations, and meditation apps, that nagging sense of incompleteness follows you like a shadow. And in a way, that's exactly what it is. When we live with an unacknowledged shadow, life takes on a peculiar quality. Anxiety becomes your constant companion, a background hum that never disappears. You sabotage opportunities just as they begin to flourish. You see others' problems with clarity while remaining blind to patterns in your own life. These are symptoms of a fragmented self. I once worked with a client who'd built a successful career in finance, the path his family expected. He came to therapy with insomnia and panic attacks. Our work revealed a shadow filled with artistic impulses and emotional sensitivity, qualities dismissed as impractical in his achievement-oriented household. His body was staging a revolt against the confined life he'd constructed. Healing began when he expanded his identity to include these disowned aspects. We approach these problems superficially. We use productivity apps for procrastination. We recite affirmations to counter negative thoughts. We redesign our spaces hoping for inner change. These approaches are like applying fresh paint to a house with structural damage. The surface improves temporarily, but the foundation continues to crack. The shadow manifests in recognizable patterns. The perfectionist builds her identity around flawless performance. She completes a major project to universal acclaim, but feels nothing, no satisfaction, just immediate worry about the next challenge. Her shadow holds all the permission to be human, to make mistakes, to be enough without achievement. External success will never feel fulfilling until she meets this disowned part. The people pleaser can't say no. He attends events he doesn't enjoy, takes on extra work, and maintains draining relationships. Beneath his helpful exterior grows unacknowledged resentment. His shadow contains his unexpressed needs and boundaries. The right to prioritize himself, to disagree, to occasionally disappoint others. His generosity will always carry an invisible price tag until he recognizes this. These shadow-driven behaviors create the sensation of living someone else's life. You smile appropriately, say expected things, and play assigned roles perfectly. Yet there's a ghostly disconnection, like watching yourself perform in a play you never auditioned for. Jung described this as living a too small life, existing within the confined space of who we think we should be rather than who we authentically are. We construct this cage from materials provided by caregivers, educational institutions, religious teachings, and cultural messaging. Each bar represents an internalized should or shouldn't. The cage feels safe because it's familiar, but cannot contain your fullness. Ignoring the shadow costs more than vague dissatisfaction. Relationships deteriorate as we project disowned qualities onto others. Creative endeavors stall without access to our full emotional landscape. Physical symptoms manifest as our body communicates what our conscious mind refuses to acknowledge. The energy required to maintain this internal division leaves us exhausted. Living with an unintegrated shadow means profound disconnection from your potential and authentic self. You're operating with partial information, making decisions without access to complete inner resources. It's navigating with half a map, then wondering why you keep getting lost. Your shadow contains everything your conscious mind has deemed unacceptable, qualities, desires, and capabilities you've disowned to maintain your identity and sense of belonging. But your shadow isn't merely negative traits. It houses both your greatest fears and your greatest gifts. The shadow that holds your capacity for anger also contains your power to establish healthy boundaries. The shadow concealing vulnerability also protects your capacity for deep connection. The shadow aspects you judge as selfish might hold the key to necessary self-preservation and authentic expression. When these aspects remain repressed, they don't disappear, they operate from the unconscious. They become the invisible architects of your limitations. The parts you refuse to acknowledge become the forces that keep you trapped in restrictive patterns. Consider the organizational consultant who helps companies identify blind spots while remaining oblivious to her chaotic personal finances, or the therapist guiding others through emotional territories he refuses to visit himself. Each has split-off aspects that don't fit their conscious self-image, creating the very limitations they struggle against. This brings us to a profound paradox. What we resist persists with greater intensity. The qualities we reject don't vanish. They go underground and gain power. Anger emerges as passive aggression. Denied vulnerability manifests as inability to form deep connections. Disowned ambition transforms into bitter criticism of others' success. Living with these split-off aspects is like holding a beach ball underwater. It requires constant energy, and eventually, the ball will burst to the surface, often at the least convenient moment. The shadow will be heard. The only question is whether you'll listen consciously or be forced to attention through crisis. The origins of your shadow. While you exhaust yourself holding that beach ball underwater, it's worth asking how it got there in the first place. Your shadow wasn't born fully formed. It developed through thousands of subtle interactions where you learned which aspects of your authentic self needed to be hidden away for survival. That underwater beach ball didn't appear overnight. It was inflated breath by breath throughout your childhood. Each time you heard "big boys don't cry" or "nice girls aren't angry." Have you ever wondered which essential parts of yourself were systematically removed from your conscious identity before you were old enough to realize what was happening? The shadow forms during those tender early years of childhood when we're completely dependent on our caregivers for survival. This vulnerability creates a powerful imperative. We must maintain connection to those who protect us, even at the cost of our authenticity. Picture that moment when you expressed an emotion and watched your parents' face shift into disapproval. Like a fractured mirror, reflecting back only the acceptable parts of you while obscuring others. In that instant, a split occurred. You learned that this part of you threatened the relationship you needed most. Our young psyches begin categorizing aspects of ourselves as either acceptable or unacceptable. When a child reaches for an object and hears "don't touch that" repeatedly, they learn something fundamental about their curiosity itself. A creative child told to be more practical begins to divorce themselves from their creative impulse entirely. These early splits become the foundation of the shadow. The psychological mechanism underlying this process is repression. Unlike conscious choices to set aside certain behaviors in appropriate contexts, repression operates without our awareness, pushing unwanted aspects completely out of our conscious mind. The paradox is striking. The more we try to eliminate these unwanted parts, the more powerful they become in our unconscious. The sensitive boy who hides his tears doesn't become less sensitive. His sensitivity goes underground, perhaps emerging later as unexplained depression. The angry girl who learns to smile instead of expressing her rage finds her anger emerging through perfectionism or passive-aggressive behavior. Cultural messaging amplifies this shadow-making process through powerful systems of reward and punishment. Gender expectations shape what gets relegated to the shadow. Boys learn that vulnerability belongs in the shadow, while girls often learn that assertiveness is shadow material. The specific content of your shadow bears the unmistakable imprint of your culture. These messages arrive through countless channels. The toys you were given, the media you consumed, the behaviors that earned praise at school. If academic achievement was prized in your environment, your playful qualities might have been pushed into shadow. If your family valued stoic practicality, your emotional sensitivity may have been banished to the unconscious. Like a vibrant painting turned to face the wall, unseen but still present. The formation of the shadow isn't purely individual. It connects to what Jung called the collective unconscious, that shared reservoir of archetypes that transcends individual experience. Your personal shadow not only contains your individual repressions, but also connects to cultural shadows, those collective disowned aspects of society that operate unconsciously in institutions and social patterns. Common shadow formation patterns reveal themselves across different lives. The creative child consistently directed toward practical subjects may develop a shadow filled with artistic expression. Later in life, they might find themselves inexplicably drawn to artistic people. The sensitive child told to toughen up might develop a shadow containing emotional depth, only to feel mysteriously irritated by others who express emotions freely, like watching someone enjoy a meal you've denied yourself. Shadow formation often happens in the name of love. Parents who discourage their child's anger typically believe they're helping the child function better in society. Teachers who redirect to students daydreaming generally think they're preparing them for success. The shadow forms not through malice, but through misguided protection, which makes it harder to recognize later. Understanding your shadow's origins provides the first step toward reclaiming your personal power. When you recognize that parts of yourself weren't banished because they were inherently wrong, but because they were inconvenient to others, you can begin reintegration with compassion rather than judgment. The cost of leaving the shadow unaddressed is substantial. We repress aspects of ourselves for survival and belonging, but the price is steep. A fragmented life where energy is constantly diverted toward maintaining internal divisions. The energy required to keep parts of yourself underwater could instead fuel a life of wholeness and purpose. The fragmentation affects every aspect of life. Professionally as underachievement or workaholism, in relationships as choosing partners who express your disowned qualities, and spiritually as a persistent sense of incompleteness despite accomplishments. Your shadow's formation wasn't a single event, but a continuous process throughout your development. It wasn't your fault, and it wasn't necessarily the fault of those who raised you. The good news is that what was formed can be transformed. What was unconsciously created can be consciously integrated. The 3 warning signs your shadow is running the show. Though hidden from your conscious awareness, your shadow refuses to remain silent and reveals itself through specific patterns that function like psychological fingerprints. What if those recurring relationship conflicts, surprising emotional outbursts, and self-sabotaging behaviors weren't random character flaws, but rather systematic attempts by your disowned self to communicate something essential about who you truly are? Your shadow doesn't stay confined to the unconscious realm where it was banished. Instead, it finds ways to make its presence known through distinctive patterns in your emotional landscape and behavior. These patterns are deliberate communications from aspects of yourself fighting to be acknowledged. Most people misinterpret these signals as character flaws or personal failings, missing the invitation to deeper self-knowledge they represent. The first warning sign your shadow is taking the wheel appears through emotional triggers that feel wildly disproportionate to the situation. Your reaction exceeds what the circumstances logically warrant because you're responding to something deeper from your past. Your body becomes a truth teller, heart pounding, breathing rapid, chest tightening, signaling shadow activation. What appears as an overreaction reveals unprocessed material-seeking integration. Take Sarah, who flew into unexpected rage when her colleague received credit for a project they worked on together. Her intense reaction wasn't about the credit itself, but touched on childhood experiences where her achievements went unrecognized by her parents. What if that seemingly irrational anger actually revealed her unacknowledged need for recognition? The second warning sign appears through projection, one of the mind's most fascinating defense mechanisms. Projection occurs when we attribute to others the qualities we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves. The traits that irritate us most in others often reflect disowned aspects of ourselves. Our projections aren't random, but follow consistent patterns across different relationships. These projected qualities create destructive cycles in relationships that block genuine connection. Consider how this manifests. You might feel intensely bothered by a coworker's ambition, labeling them ruthlessly competitive, when you're actually uncomfortable with your own competitive drives that were discouraged in childhood. What if the colleague who triggers your judgment about fakeness is actually reflecting your own unacknowledged fear of inauthenticity? The third warning sign manifests as self-sabotage, those baffling behaviors where you undermine your conscious goals, procrastinating on important projects despite genuinely wanting to succeed, picking fights with your partner when things are going well, abandoning healthy habits just as they begin to show results. Self-sabotage occurs when your conscious intentions threaten shadow material. If part of your shadow contains the belief, "I don't deserve success," then as you approach success, that shadow belief activates to protect you from what it perceives as danger. Could your tendency to withdraw when opportunities arise be protecting you from an old fear of visibility? These warning signs manifest differently based on individual personality traits. Someone with perfectionistic tendencies might experience their shadow through harsh self-criticism. A person with more extroverted traits might see their shadow emerge through relationship dynamics, where they consistently place others' needs above their own. What's crucial to understand is that these warning signs aren't problems to eliminate. They're doorways to transformation. Each emotional trigger points to shadow material needing integration. Each projection reveals a disowned aspect awaiting reclamation. Each self-sabotaging behavior indicates a shadow belief ready to be examined. Consider Marcus, a composed attorney who prided himself on rationality. He found himself inexplicably enraged whenever dealing with a creative, emotionally expressive colleague. Through shadow work, Marcus discovered he was projecting his own disowned creative nature, aspects his analytical father had discouraged. By recognizing this projection, Marcus began reclaiming his creative side through music, and his anger dissolved. The projection that caused conflict became a pathway to wholeness. Or Elisa, who repeatedly sabotaged promising relationships by becoming distant just as emotional intimacy deepened. Through exploring her triggers, she connected this pattern to childhood experiences where vulnerability was followed by disappointment. Her self-sabotage wasn't a character flaw, but a protection mechanism. By recognizing this shadow dynamic, she began creating new experiences of emotional safety. When your heart races during a seemingly minor conflict, your body signals that something deeper has been activated. Rather than ignoring these signals, you can use them as entry points for shadow exploration. Your body's wisdom often recognizes shadow material before your conscious mind catches up. What hidden truth might your next emotional overreaction be trying to reveal about who you truly are? The transformative potential of shadow integration. Your body's signals aren't just warning lights. They're invitations to the most transformative journey you may ever take. What's hidden in the shadow isn't merely a collection of flaws or weaknesses, but rather undeveloped strengths waiting to be reclaimed. This truth stands at the heart of shadow integration. The very qualities you've pushed away contain the key to your wholeness and authentic power. Think of shadow integration as finding a room in your house you've never entered. Inside this room are treasures you've forgotten you owned. The transformation occurs as you become more fully yourself. When shadow aspects remain unintegrated, you experience only fragments of your potential. Your energy divides between conscious intentions and unconscious resistance. Integration creates a shift from this fragmented state to wholeness and alignment. Many fear that acknowledging their shadow means becoming their worst selves, as if looking at anger would make them violent, or recognizing desire would make them insatiable. The psychological reality works oppositely. Unacknowledged shadow erupts unexpectedly and destructively. When you bring these aspects into consciousness, you gain the ability to respond rather than react, to choose rather than be driven by unconscious forces. Consider what happens when anger integrates rather than remains repressed. Unprocessed anger emerges as passive aggression, irritability, or emotional outbursts damaging relationships. But when consciously acknowledged, this same energy transforms into healthy boundary setting, motivation toward positive change, and courage to stand for yourself and others. Transforming repressed anger into healthy assertiveness is like turning raw or into polished metal. The essential element remains, but its form becomes refined and purposeful. Similarly, integrated fear becomes wise discernment rather than paralyzing anxiety. When you acknowledge fears directly, you separate genuine warning signals from conditioned overreactions. This transformation allows navigation through life's challenges with clarity and composure, responding thoughtfully instead of being hijacked by unconscious panic. History shows how individuals channeled shadow aspects into creative breakthroughs. Beethoven transformed his rage at going deaf into profound music. Frida Kahlo converted physical pain and emotional suffering into visual art that moves millions today. The shadow, when integrated rather than denied, becomes a source of distinctive strength. The process of integration creates measurable changes in neurological functioning. As Dr. James Hollis, a prominent Jungian psychoanalyst, emphasizes, when you've dealt with your fears, the fears of others will not be so frightening to you. This insight highlights a fundamental truth about the benefits of integration. It doesn't just change your relationship with yourself. It transforms how you relate to everyone around you. When you repeatedly respond to shadow material with awareness rather than avoidance, you rewire your brain. New neural pathways form that support more flexible, integrated responses to triggering situations. Your amygdala, the brain's alarm system, becomes less reactive, reducing fight-or-flight responses. This neurological rewiring translates into greater capacity to remain present during challenges instead of becoming overwhelmed. The emotional freedom that emerges through shadow integration is remarkable. When you no longer maintain rigid psychological divisions between acceptable and unacceptable parts of yourself, energy becomes available for living. Many describe feeling as though they've carried a heavy backpack for years, only to finally set it down. The vigilance required to keep shadow material suppressed creates tension that, once released, reveals unnecessary suffering you've been enduring. This integration fosters emotional resilience. Life's challenges no longer threaten your sense of self because you're no longer defending against parts of yourself. You develop capacity to experience the full spectrum of human emotion without destabilization. This resilience means becoming large enough to hold whatever arises with understanding and self-compassion. Relationships transform as integration progresses. When you're not projecting disowned aspects onto others, you see them more clearly for who they actually are. This clarity creates conditions for authentic connection rather than relationships distorted by projection and judgment. Empathy flows naturally from recognizing our shared humanity, including our shadows. Creative expression often blossoms through shadow integration, as you access parts previously cut off from conscious awareness. The artist gives form to the formless, allowing shadow material to find expression through image, movement, sound, or story. Many discover unexpected gifts through this process, as if creativity had been waiting for their full self to emerge. Shadow integration leads to authenticity, the feeling of finally being at home in yourself. Energy previously spent maintaining a curated self-image becomes available for genuine self-expression. You speak more directly, laugh more freely, and make choices aligned with true values rather than internalized expectations. This authenticity magnetizes similar authenticity in others, creating more genuine connections. The path isn't without challenges. It requires courage to face aspects you've spent a lifetime avoiding. It demands patience as you learn to work with rather than against yourself. And it necessitates compassion as you encounter the wounds that led to shadow formation. But these challenges pale compared to the cost of continuing to live at the bridge. Emotional triggers as transformation tools. Integration requires courage, but how do you know where to direct that courage? The answer might surprise you. Your most uncomfortable emotional reactions, those moments when you feel instantly triggered beyond reason, contain the exact coordinates of your most valuable shadow material. These aren't random emotional storms, but rather sophisticated navigation systems designed to guide you toward wholeness. Emotional triggers are powerful physiological and psychological responses that feel disproportionate to the situation at hand. Imagine this scenario. You're in a team meeting when a colleague mildly questions your approach to a project. Suddenly, your heart pounds, your face flushes, and intense defensiveness washes over you. This reaction isn't about your colleague. It's a signpost pointing directly to unintegrated aspects of yourself seeking acknowledgement. Most people either suppress these reactions or indulge them fully. Neither approach leads to growth. Instead, view these triggers as valuable messages to decode. That surge of anger, when someone questions your decision, points toward a part of yourself feeling fundamentally insecure about your decision-making abilities. When triggered, your amygdala activates and initiates physiological responses. Racing heart, cortisol release, even physical pain. These bodily sensations are biological signals indicating your shadow self is influencing your behavior. Your body speaks the language your conscious mind avoids. Transform your relationship with triggers through this three-step process. 1. Notice. Develop awareness of physical sensations during triggered moments. Do you feel chest tightness? Shallow breathing? Facial heat? These bodily clues often appear before you consciously register an emotional reaction. 2. Name. Identify specific emotions beneath the initial reaction. Beneath anger often lies fear. Beneath irritability often lies grief. Beneath dismissiveness often lies shame. Taking a moment to name these emotions brings clarity. 3. Navigate. Respond with self-compassion rather than self-judgment. Instead of berating yourself for being too sensitive, choose curiosity. What part of you speaks through this reaction? What does this part need? This transforms triggers from embarrassing outbursts into opportunities for profound self-knowledge. Common triggers reveal specific shadow material. Authority figure triggers may indicate unintegrated aspects related to personal power. Criticism triggers likely reveal shadow material around perfectionism or worth. Envy at others' success might show disowned ambition or creative potential. Consider a client who felt triggered whenever her friend discussed spiritual practices. Her initial reaction was judgment, mentally labeling her friend as flaky. Through our 3-step process, she discovered that beneath her judgment lay deep longing. She had disowned her spiritual curiosity as impractical early in life. Her friend's freedom to explore spirituality triggered this unacknowledged aspect of herself. Structure your trigger work with practical documentation. Create a trigger journal with 4 columns. Situation. My partner suggested I take a different route to work. Physical sensations. Tight chest, clenched jaw, heat in face. Emotions. Initial irritation, then feeling controlled and disrespected. Possible shadow material. Disowned need for autonomy and fear of being controlled like in childhood. This practice reveals patterns that might otherwise remain invisible, showing how certain themes recur in your triggered responses. Distinguish between shadow triggers and actual danger signals. Your triggers are like red blinking lights on an otherwise calm road. They demand attention not because of present danger, but because they mark buried material. The key differentiating factor is proportion. Shadow triggers produce reactions that feel outsized compared to the situation. Self-compassion remains essential throughout this process. The Rooter.org approach emphasizes 4 steps. Identify the feeling. Identify what the feeling reminds you of, allow self-compassion, and mend relationship messes. This acknowledges that trigger work affects your relationships with others. Our most painful triggers guard our most potent potential. The aspects we've pushed into shadow contain not just wounds but gifts. The sensitivity that caused you to suppress emotional expressiveness may, when integrated, become your greatest strength in connecting authentically with others. Denied anger may transform into healthy assertiveness. Imagine your shadow material as a treasure chest buried beneath protective earth. Your triggers mark where to dig. Each time you work through a triggered response with awareness and compassion, you remove another layer of soil. The process isn't comfortable, but what awaits beneath is worth the journey. This practice creates resilience over time. Through mindfulness and cognitive restructuring, you develop new neural pathways, allowing for greater emotional control. Your amygdala's reactivity gradually diminishes as you build capacity to respond rather than react. With consistent practice, your relationship with triggered emotions fundamentally changes. Projection, seeing yourself in others. Beyond tracking your internal triggers lies an even more revealing territory: your relationships with others. What if that colleague who drives you crazy with their constant need for validation is actually mirroring your own unacknowledged desire for recognition? The qualities that most intensely irritate or captivate you in others often represent the exact parts of yourself you haven't yet acknowledged or accepted. This psychological mechanism, known as projection, serves as a mirror reflecting hidden aspects of ourselves. When we project, we attribute our own thoughts, feelings, or impulses to someone else. Our psyche creates a mental sleight of hand, pointing away from ourselves and saying, "It's them who feels this way, not me." While Freud viewed projection primarily as a defense mechanism, Jung recognized it as a natural process through which we navigate our internal landscape. According to Jung, we project not only our flaws and negative emotions, but also our unrealized potential, talents, and positive qualities we may not feel worthy of owning. Think about someone in your life who consistently triggers strong emotions in you. Perhaps it's a coworker whose self-promotion frustrates you, or a friend whose neediness exhausts you. These intense reactions often reveal more about you than about them, highlighting aspects of yourself you've pushed into the shadows. When we engage in projection, we create relationship dynamics that reflect our internal conflicts. That argumentative colleague who seems to pick fights? If their behavior particularly bothers you, you might be witnessing aspects of your own unexpressed assertiveness. The indecisive friend? They might mirror your own uncertainty or dependency that you've buried beneath a constructed image of self-sufficiency. These projections create genuine relationship difficulties because we're not actually seeing the other person. We're seeing a distorted image overlaid with our own unacknowledged qualities. We might repeatedly attract partners who embody qualities we've disowned, or clash with the same personality types across different relationships. The mirror test offers a practical way to identify projection. When someone provokes a strong reaction in you, pause and ask yourself, what quality am I reacting to? How might I possess this same quality? even if it expresses differently in me. Let's try this reflective exercise now. Think of someone who recently triggered a strong emotional response. What specific behavior bothered you? How might you express a similar trait in your own life? For example, Michael found himself irritated by a new co-worker's apparent arrogance. Through reflection, he realized he was projecting his own disowned ambition, an aspect he'd suppressed after receiving criticism for being too aggressive early in his career. By recognizing this projection, Michael improved his relationship with his colleague and reconnected with his authentic drive. Projection doesn't just involve negative qualities. Jung described the golden shadow, positive aspects of ourselves that we project onto others we admire. When you excessively admire someone's creativity or confidence, you may be witnessing your own golden shadow. These positive projections can lead to unhealthy idealization, placing others on pedestals while diminishing your own capabilities. Projection manifests in countless scenarios. In romantic relationships, someone might accuse their partner of emotional unavailability when they themselves struggle with vulnerability. In workplaces, team members criticize others' performance while avoiding their own issues. On social media, people aggressively criticize others' views while refusing to examine contradictions in their own positions. At a broader level, projection fuels societal divisions. Political discourse often involves shadow projection, where groups demonize rivals by painting them as embodiments of their own shadow qualities. This adds emotional conviction to arguments, but creates a distorted view that prevents genuine dialogue. To begin reclaiming your projections, try this questioning exercise when you notice a strong emotional reaction. What specific quality am I reacting to? How does this quality make me feel? Have I ever expressed this quality myself? What would happen if I acknowledged this in myself? What might I gain by reclaiming this projection? The process of recognizing projections involves cultivating self-awareness through reflection, seeking feedback from trusted others, and developing emotional intelligence by practicing identifying your feelings. As you become more skilled at recognizing projection, you'll notice how it operates in your social media consumption. Those individuals who provoke intense reactions often reflect aspects of your own psyche seeking acknowledgement. The goal isn't eliminating projection entirely, but becoming conscious of it and using these moments as opportunities for growth. Each projection you recognize returns a piece of your authentic self that had been displaced onto others. As you reclaim these projections, your relationships transform. You begin to see others more clearly, without distortion. Conflicts that once seemed inevitable begin to dissolve as you take responsibility for your reactions rather than blaming others. You develop greater compassion, both for yourself and others, as you recognize that the qualities you've judged harshly often reflect aspects of yourself you've judged most severely. The journaling journey, documenting your shadow. The compassion you've developed by recognizing projections creates the perfect foundation for your next phase of shadow work. One that requires nothing more than a pen and paper, yet remains mysteriously intimidating to many. What makes us so resistant to documenting our inner world? And what treasures might we uncover if we push through this resistance? The blank page invites your shadow to reveal itself in ways conversation alone never could. Journaling stands as perhaps the most accessible, yet profound tool in shadow work. Unlike therapy, which requires another person, or meditation, which can sometimes allow us to bypass difficult emotions, journaling creates a safe container where your shadow aspects can finally speak their truth. Like a secret garden waiting to be cultivated, your journal provides soil where hidden aspects of yourself can take root and flourish in privacy. The physical act of writing creates distance between ourselves and our thoughts, allowing us to witness our inner experience rather than being completely identified with it. This psychological safety is crucial when confronting the shadow. Research has consistently shown that expressive writing provides significant benefits for processing emotions, including reduced stress, anxiety, and depressive symptoms. When you write about difficult feelings or uncomfortable realizations, you're creating a container that holds these aspects of yourself without judgment, allowing integration to begin. Many people experience resistance when faced with the blank page, often because journaling brings us face to face with parts of ourselves we've become experts at avoiding. If you notice this resistance, try acknowledging it directly. I notice I don't want to write right now. I feel resistance in my chest and a desire to do anything else. By documenting these feelings, you've already begun the practice. Setting a timer for just 5 minutes can remove pressure while building the habit. When you're ready to move deeper, specific shadow work prompts can guide your exploration. Consider these 5 powerful prompts. First, describe a person who irritates you intensely. You might realize your coworker's confidence that annoys you reflects your own suppressed leadership qualities. Second, write about a recurring dream or nightmare. Your dream of being chased might reveal how you're running from confronting a difficult truth in your waking life. Third, describe a time when you acted completely out of character. Your unexpected outburst at a family dinner might connect to unacknowledged resentment you've buried. Fourth, what compliment is hardest for you to receive? Your discomfort with praise about your creativity might indicate talents you've dismissed as unimportant. Fifth, write a letter from your future self who has fully integrated the shadow aspect you're currently struggling with. This creates dialogue with your potential wholeness. The effectiveness of journaling lies in externalization. By writing down thoughts and feelings, you bring clarity to inner experiences, making them tangible and easier to comprehend. This process reveals underlying patterns and provides insights into areas requiring attention. Many people experience aha moments while journaling, as connections between seemingly unrelated experiences suddenly become clear. To create a foundation for effective shadow journaling, 3 guidelines prove essential. First, ensure privacy. Your journal should be a completely safe space where you can express yourself without concern for others' judgment. Some people keep their journals locked, password protected if digital, or simply in a private location. Second, approach your writing with radical non-judgment. Notice when your inner critic appears. I shouldn't feel this way, or this is stupid. Acknowledge it, and continue writing anyway. Remember that the practice is about exploration and understanding. Your shadow responds to compassion and curiosity. Third, establish consistent practice. Regular journaling allows for deeper exploration of the self, facilitating the emergence of patterns and insights over time. You might notice how certain triggers recur, how your reactions evolve, or how your perspective gradually shifts. As you become comfortable with basic journaling, advanced techniques can deepen your exploration. One powerful method involves dialogue with shadow aspects. Rather than just writing about your shadow, try writing as your shadow. Ask questions like, what do you need? And allow the shadow aspect to respond through your writing. Dream documentation represents another valuable technique. Keep your journal beside your bed and record dreams immediately upon waking. Dreams often provide a window into the unconscious, revealing symbolic representations of the shadow. A recurring dream about being unprepared for an exam might reveal shadow material around perfectionism or imposter syndrome. The cumulative effect of regular journaling can be profound. Over time, you create not just a record of shadow exploration, but a testament to your courage in facing difficult truths. Many shadow workers report that reviewing earlier entries reveals how far they've come. Insights become integrated, reactivity diminishes, and a greater sense of wholeness emerges. Remember that shadow journaling isn't about perfection, it's about presence. Some days your writing may feel profound, other days mundane. What matters is your willingness to meet yourself on the page, day after day. Creative expression, transforming shadow energy. Beyond journaling's written landscape lies a territory where your shadow speaks in brushstrokes, movement, and melody. While words offer one path to self-knowledge, art therapy provides a unique portal to shadow material that often remains inaccessible through verbal processing alone. The most transformative creative expressions emerge from the rich, untamed wilderness of our shadow. When your deepest emotions defy rational explanation or neat categorization, they can find powerful form through creative expression. Art bypasses intellectual defenses, creating a direct channel to unconscious material otherwise locked away. Consider those moments when you've struggled to explain a complex emotion, finding yourself saying, "I don't have the words." That's where creative expression becomes invaluable. The difference between intellectually analyzing your shadow and experiencing it through creative channels is significant. Approaching shadow work solely through cognitive understanding keeps you safely detached from raw emotional content. It resembles reading about swimming versus actually immersing yourself in water. Creative expression invites you to dive in, to encounter your shadow material directly through sensory experience rather than abstract concepts. Creative shadow work offers remarkable versatility. Visual arts like painting and collage externalize inner experiences, making the invisible visible. A splash of red captures rage you've never acknowledged. Dark, Chaotic portions of collage reveal feelings of fragmentation beneath conscious awareness. Movement practices allow the body to express what the mind cannot articulate, releasing emotional energy stored in muscle and tissue. Music provides a language for emotional experiences that transcend verbal description. Creative writing approaches often reveal shadow truths through metaphor and symbolism that direct journaling might miss. These creative modalities serve as pathways available to anyone willing to explore. The goal isn't creating museum-worthy art, but establishing communication with parts of yourself that have no other way to speak. As one art therapist explained, when words are not enough, we turn to images and symbols to tell our stories. Art therapy creates a bridge between conscious awareness and unconscious material. Through various art-making processes, you externalize inner experiences, gaining insight into shadow aspects while facilitating emotional healing. This process fosters connection with your authentic self, allowing you to reclaim disowned parts. Creative expression activates multiple brain regions associated with emotions, memory, and self-awareness, forming new neural pathways while reducing stress response. This activation facilitates emotional regulation and shadow integration, essentially rewiring your brain for new perspectives and greater emotional control. Throughout history, artists have channeled their inner demons into their work, transforming personal darkness into universal light. Frida Kahlo's self-portraits unflinchingly depicted her physical and emotional pain, transforming personal suffering into universal explorations of the human condition. Her work integrated pain into a complete vision of herself, rather than glorifying suffering. This demonstrates how creative expression transforms shadow energy into powerful contributions. Right now, I invite you to try a simple exercise. Close your eyes for a moment, and imagine a color that represents an emotion you find difficult to express. When you open your eyes, jot down that color and what it might be trying to tell you. This small act begins the process of creative shadow work. You don't need formal training to benefit from these approaches. Emotional color mapping assigns colors to different emotions, creating an abstract representation of your emotional landscape without artistic skill requirements. Shadow selfies capture aspects of yourself typically hidden from the world. Movement medicine allows your body to move spontaneously to music evoking difficult emotions, revealing what gestures emerge naturally. The clay exercise offers another accessible approach. With eyes closed, allow your hands to shape clay while focusing on a challenging emotion. The resulting form often reveals surprising insights about your relationship with that emotion. Dream art visually represents recurring dreams or nightmares, uncovering unconscious symbols your rational mind might miss. At the heart of creative shadow work lies sublimation, transforming potentially destructive shadow energy into something constructive and meaningful. This alchemical process harnesses shadow energy as fuel for creation. By channeling negative emotions into art, you transform them into something positive, providing a language for shadow aspects that have no words. Sublimation creates a container for difficult emotions, allowing full experience without overwhelm. This symbolic processing facilitates healing while developing resilience. What's powerful about sublimation is how it redirects shadow energy rather than eliminating it. Jealousy becomes passionate intensity in musical performance. Rage becomes vigor in physical art forms. As you engage with creative shadow work, unexpected developments emerge. Many discover talents and passions buried beneath self-criticism or fear. These discoveries represent reclaimed aspects of your authentic self that can reshape your identity and purpose. Most importantly, creative expression provides access to shadow material that might remain forever locked away if confined to verbal expression alone. Some experiences exist in pre-verbal form, especially those formed before language development. Others are stored as sensory memories rather than narrative ones. Creative modalities offer direct access to these deeper layers. The golden shadow, your hidden light. When you deeply admire someone, what qualities draw you toward them? Their confidence, creativity, wisdom, charisma? What if I told you that your greatest strengths aren't missing, but simply hiding in plain sight, projected onto the people you most admire? This phenomenon, known as the golden shadow, represents the positive qualities and potentials you've unconsciously disowned and projected onto others, creating a peculiar blind spot to your own brilliance. Unlike the dark shadow that contains rejected negative traits, the golden shadow houses your unacknowledged gifts and unrealized potential, two sides of the same psychological coin. Think about someone whose abilities leave you in genuine awe. That sensation of admiration often signals more than mere appreciation. It's a mirror reflecting aspects of yourself you've never fully claimed. The qualities that captivate you in others frequently exist within you as dormant capacities, waiting to be recognized and developed. Positive traits can be threatening to our identity. This psychological mechanism functions through cognitive dissonance. When positive attributes conflict with how you currently see yourself, especially if these qualities weren't encouraged in your early environment, your mind projects them outward. You might find yourself drawn to a colleague's self-assurance while believing, "I could never be that confident." This disconnection prevents you from integrating these qualities into your self-image. When was the last time a compliment made you uncomfortable, and what might that reveal about your hidden potential? Notice which positive remarks make you squirm, dismiss, or immediately deflect. That uncomfortable feeling when someone praises your intelligence, leadership ability, or artistic sensibility isn't modesty. It's resistance to acknowledging these qualities as authentic parts of yourself. When someone tells you you're insightful, and you immediately think, "If only they knew how confused I really am," you're witnessing your golden shadow in action. The projection of positive qualities manifests in various patterns. You might elevate certain individuals to near-mythic status, feeling they possess something magical you could never embody. Maybe you're drawn to speakers who exude the authentic self-expression you secretly desire. These projections reveal the specific qualities awaiting reclamation in your psychological landscape. This unrecognized aspect of yourself exacts a significant cost. When the golden shadow remains unintegrated, it prevents you from recognizing your own capabilities, placing artificial limitations on your growth. You spend energy maintaining a diminished self-image while investing emotionally in others who mirror your disowned potential. This creates a persistent feeling of inadequacy, always seeking outside yourself what already exists within. A powerful reflection exercise can help you identify and begin reclaiming these golden shadow aspects. Select someone you deeply admire, or perhaps even envy. List the specific qualities you find most compelling about them. Choose one quality and ask, "What would it look like if I fully embodied this quality right now?" Describe how embodying this quality could transform your daily experience. Create a practical action plan with small, daily steps that strengthen this dimension of yourself. The key insight is to act as if you already possess this quality rather than treating it as something to attain. The unconscious projection of positive qualities often leads to unhealthy idealization of others and diminishment of self. When you attribute your own potential exclusively to someone else, you create an imbalanced relationship where you remain perpetually less than. This pattern appears in celebrity worship, guru idealization, and romantic partnerships, where one person is placed on a pedestal. While admiration is natural, problems arise when you fail to recognize these same qualities within yourself. One client discovered this pattern after becoming obsessed with a colleague's creative abilities. She found herself constantly seeking this person's validation, while simultaneously dismissing her own creative ideas. Through shadow work, she recognized that her fixation represented disowned creative capacities she had suppressed since childhood criticism. As she began reclaiming these aspects, her relationship transformed from unhealthy idealization to mutual respect between equals. Integrating the golden shadow leads to significant personal expansion and a greater sense of wholeness. When you reclaim the energy previously spent on projection, you gain access to your full range of human capacities. This integration requires consistently recognizing, accepting, and actively embodying these positive qualities you've disowned. The golden shadow may actually represent a greater danger than your dark shadow because it remains largely invisible in our growth-focused culture. While most personal development approaches address limiting beliefs, few identify the projection of positive qualities as a fundamental obstacle. Your golden shadow operates beneath awareness, silently limiting your self-concept while you focus on fixing perceived flaws. As Jung observed, psychological integration requires reclaiming projections, both positive and negative. This process involves becoming conscious of the energy investments made in others and recognizing that the admired qualities are aspects of the self that have been disowned. By acknowledging and embracing these qualities, you begin to honor them within yourself and embody your true creative gifts, leading to a more authentic and empowered life. The 30-Day Shadow Integration Challenge. While understanding the shadow in theory is powerful, the journey from theory to transformation lies in consistent practice, not just understanding? What if the difference between intellectual awareness and genuine integration was simply 15 minutes a day for 1 month? The 30-day Shadow Integration Challenge creates a structured container for this powerful work, designed to turn psychological concepts into lived experience. When we approach shadow work, our first obstacle is often ourselves. That initial resistance signals you're approaching meaningful material. The mind naturally protects established patterns, even unhelpful ones. You might find yourself suddenly remembering urgent tasks, feeling inexplicable fatigue, or experiencing skepticism about whether this work is necessary. These reactions are perfectly normal and indicate you're on the right track. The challenge breaks down the intimidating process of shadow integration into small, manageable daily practices. This approach aligns with behavioral psychology research on habit formation. Studies show that consistent 15-minute daily practices are more effective than sporadic longer sessions. By committing to just 15 minutes each day, you reduce the initial resistance while creating enough consistency for real transformation. The challenge progresses through 3 distinct phases. Phase 1, Awareness, days 1 to 10. Focus on identifying emotional triggers, tracking projection patterns, and noticing moments of resistance or self-sabotage. You'll keep a trigger journal, documenting situations where your emotional response feels disproportionate to the event itself. This phase creates a foundation of self-observation without immediate pressure to change. Phase 2, Exploration, days 11 to 20. Dive deeper into the material you've identified through structured journaling prompts, creative exercises, and reflection on projection patterns. Explore recurring triggers through artistic expression or write dialogues with projected qualities. This phase invites curiosity about the origins of your shadow material and what needs they might be trying to meet. Phase 3, Integration, days 21 to 30. Practice new responses to old triggers, reclaim projections, and celebrate small victories. This includes daily affirmations acknowledging both light and shadow aspects, practicing uncomfortable emotions in small doses, or engaging with creative work that expresses previously disowned parts of yourself. Sarah, a participant in a recent challenge, experienced a breakthrough during the exploration phase. While journaling about her frequent irritation with a boastful colleague, she suddenly recognized her own disowned desire for recognition. This simple realization, captured in just 15 minutes of reflection, transformed her workplace interactions and unlocked creative ambitions she'd been suppressing for years. Creating appropriate containment and support during this challenge is crucial. Establish boundaries around when and where you'll engage with this material by setting a specific time each day and using a dedicated private journal. Support mechanisms are equally important. Identify at least one trusted friend who can provide support if difficult emotions arise. Consider joining online communities focused on personal growth, or work with a therapist or coach for professional guidance, especially for challenging material. As you progress through the 30 days, expect an emotional journey. The initial phase often involves resistance and emotional release as you confront material living in the shadows. The middle phase brings patterns into focus, revealing connections between triggers and recurring projection themes. By the final phase, many participants report expanded emotional capacity, greater self-compassion, and reduced reactivity to former triggers. Relationships often improve as projection decreases and interactions become more authentic. The challenge should be customizable rather than rigid. If a particular exercise feels overwhelming, modify your approach, perhaps scaling back the intensity or substituting a more nurturing practice that day. The key is consistency rather than perfection. The transformative potential of 30 days of practice is remarkable. This time frame establishes new neural pathways while remaining achievable. The combination of awareness practices, structured reflection, and creative expression provides multiple entry points to shadow material. What makes this challenge particularly effective is its integrated approach, combining proven techniques rather than relying on any single method. The alternation between awareness, exploration, and integration practices creates a rhythm that supports sustainable transformation. This isn't about forcing breakthrough moments, but building consistent practice that allows natural integration to unfold. The integrated life, your future self. As the practice unfolds into a natural rhythm, a question emerges that few dare to ask themselves. What happens when the war within you finally ends? The integrated life, waiting on the other side of shadow work, represents an entirely different way of existing in the world. This is what Jung called individuation, perhaps the most misunderstood yet powerful concept in all of psychology. Imagine waking up each morning with a profound sense that every part of you belongs, even those aspects you once desperately tried to hide or eliminate. When you're no longer divided against yourself, energy previously spent maintaining internal barriers becomes available for creation, connection, and purposeful living. This is the lived experience of countless individuals who've walked the path of shadow integration. The internal landscape transforms from a battlefield to a symphony where every instrument, even those playing in minor keys, contributes to the whole composition. In this integrated state, authenticity becomes your natural mode of being rather than something you strive for. The constant performance of trying to appear better, smarter, or more put together than you feel falls away. You find yourself speaking more truthfully, choosing more intentionally, and moving through the world with a quiet confidence that needs no external validation. This reflects a fundamental comfort with your humanity, including your limitations and contradictions. Individuation exists as a dynamic, ongoing process that unfolds throughout your entire life. Each new life stage brings fresh shadow material to work with, and the process of integration continues to deepen. The difference is that once you've experienced true integration, you recognize the process and no longer fear the discomfort it sometimes brings. Your emotional landscape undergoes a remarkable transformation. Emotions that once felt threatening, rage, grief, jealousy, desire, become valuable messengers rather than enemies. You develop emotional agility, the capacity to experience feelings fully without being controlled by them. This represents engagement with a new level of consciousness. When projection diminishes, your relationships evolve dramatically. You see people more clearly for who they actually are rather than as screens for your projected material. Conversations gain depth because you're truly present rather than defending against unconscious threats. Even conflicts transform into opportunities for growth rather than repetitive patterns driven by old wounds. The creative impact of shadow integration manifests powerfully. Energy previously used for repression becomes creative fuel. Many find their artistic expression gains depth, originality, and emotional resonance. A musician who integrates anger discovers new dimensions in their compositions. A writer who acknowledges vulnerability suddenly accesses more authentic character development. The shadow, once integrated, becomes a wellspring of creative power. This integration process extends beyond the personal realm into the spiritual dimension of existence. By aligning with your deeper self, you open to the numinous, that sacred dimension that gives life ultimate meaning. This doesn't require religious belief, but rather an openness to the deeper currents flowing through human experience. As you integrate your shadow, you naturally reconnect with aspects our culture has devalued, including qualities like care, compassion, and sustainability. This fosters a more balanced way of engaging with others and the world around you. Individuation transforms through revealing who you already are, not creating someone different. Your unique constellation of qualities, talents, wounds, and potentials comes into clearer focus. You stop forcing yourself into predetermined molds and allow your authentic self to emerge. This process reveals dormant talents and unexpected gifts previously hidden in shadow. Cultivating wholeness leads to more fulfilling relationships. Your connections transform into catalysts for continued growth rather than arenas for unconscious acting out. The integration becomes the bedrock of genuine resilience. Not forced positivity, but the ability to face challenges with all your resources available. Self-acceptance emerges in a new way. Rather than conditional acceptance, I'll like myself when I achieve X, you develop the capacity to embrace both vulnerabilities and strengths. This enables you to confront life's uncertainties with purpose and confidence. Not because you know all outcomes, but because you trust your capacity to respond authentically to whatever arises. The journey ultimately reveals that the very aspects you've been hiding contain the key to living purposefully. Shadow work unveils dormant passions that may have been overshadowed by adaptive strategies or conditioning. As these emerge and integrate, you naturally move toward a meaningful existence aligned with your unique gifts. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast mountain range at sunrise. The shadows that once seemed threatening now reveal the depth and contour of the landscape. You recognize that without these shadows, the beauty before you wouldn't exist. This is the promise of integration, not the absence of darkness, but the harmonious dance of light and shadow creating a life of depth, meaning, and authentic presence. The journey continues, but now you move forward as a guide rather than a stranger to yourself. As we come to the end of our exploration, I'm reminded of Carl Jung's profound insight. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This journey speaks to our core. Shadow work embraces all parts of yourself as essential components of your true identity. Your shadow holds your unrealized potential. By integrating these aspects, you begin the authentic path toward wholeness. Join us now on this transformative journey through our 30-day Shadow Work Challenge. Download the journal prompts in the description and connect with our community. Together, we'll transform shadow